one more.
Okay, yes, the last item is item number 20. And this is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, docket number 15-4421, block 108, lot 60, 20 East 63rd Street in the Upper East Side Historic District, a row house originally designed by Gage Inslee and built in 1876 and altered by J.M. Beringer in 1954. This is an application to install storefront infill and awnings, replace windows, alter the front facade, and install areaway fences.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Caroline Kennedy from the Preservation Department. This is an application to alter the front facade of 20 East 63rd Street, located between 5th and Madison in the Upper East Side Historic District. It's a building that's been altered extensively. Initially, it was part of a row. You can see in the tax photo. At the time of designation, it had a brick facade. Well, there is a designation photo here. Right below the tax photo. Oh, okay. It had a brick facade, and then later there was a certificate of appropriateness issued to stucco the facade to look more like brownstone. The current proposal, this was a number of years ago, and the current proposal is to reintroduce brick at the upper stories and limestone below. There would be awnings at the upper stories with signage on their skirts and signage located at the ground floor. And the architect, Stephen O'Neill of O'Neill Lang and Architects, is here to present further.
Okay.
As Caroline was saying, it's 20 East 63rd Street, and there's an existing building on this block that needs a little bit of attention. And my client's taken over that building. It's an existing 5-story retail space, and the use is going to stay the same, going from a men's clothing store to a kind of a high-end luggage store for a company called Beringer. The issue with this building is it really has, I don't think it fits into the neighborhood or ever has fit into the neighborhood. There are two odd things about it. One is really just the flat brownstone finish on the face of it, and the other is that it actually, I think in the renovation in the 80s, actually projects out from the other building. So as Caroline was saying, this is what the original building looked like. So it was a sister building to the adjacent building. So what we're trying to do is bring it back into a little bit more to the context of the neighborhood. So on this side of the panel, you can see just from the building adjacent to the right. On the left side of this building is the bank building, which is a brick building. From the other side, you can see this building how it sticks out from the adjacent brownstone building. And these pictures on the next board, 901, kind of gives you a sense of what that street looks like. There's a combination of brick, limestone, a mix of limestone and brick. And in these panels here, we did kind of a photo montage of the whole block. So there are a bunch of different scale buildings with different finishes, materials, and details. And it's the same kind of thing across the street from us. So getting to our main proposal, this is the existing building, and this image shows what we're proposing, what it would look like during the daytime, and this is the nighttime view. So essentially what we're doing, just working from the ground floor up, is we're trying to reestablish the base of the building, which is typical of this block, and it's typically a 2-story base of many different forms. Sometimes it's created by a stoop going up to an articulated cornice. Sometimes just a limestone base with a different finish above it. So to establish that base, we've just kind of created this a new limestone facade, essentially reusing the existing openings and creating a new mahogany wood doors, painted framed windows. We're adding new decorative lighting, lanterns, some decorative cast iron railings to the arched window and the little garden fences in the front. in addition to this kind of decorative limestone ornamental building number to identify the number of the building. Above that, and also there's a stone sign for the Boyard. It's not non-illuminated stone sign. Above that, we're proposing a new molded brick to make it look like like it's always been there, along with instead of these kind of strip openings, we're using the existing opening and dividing it into 3 windows with divided light windows and adding awnings. So, this sort of gives a sense of the materials that we use. So this would be the red brick, the limestone. This is the material for this, for the sign. It's the awning material.
Okay, question? Yes?
I count, looking at the facade drawing, 16 signs on the facade. Would you consider reducing that number?
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay. Any further questions?
I was just going to say, just if generally you would say with regard to the upper level, both signage and the lighting, what's the precedent in this district for that? I mean, on, the lower level, but for the three top floors, and to what extent do you need that and why? Just explain it briefly.
Well, it's a window that's a single occupant. I mean, it's a building that's a single occupant building,
Yes.
and I think it's not a light that's intended to be a bright light. It's just to create a glow
Mhm.
that it just makes the presence of the building known.
Okay, the lighting.
And the commission really regulates the fixtures themselves, and how big the fixtures are, where they're attached, what they're attached to, how noticeable they are.
Okay.
So it's just going to be a light wash, the wash of
The idea is to wash from below, yes.
It's basically just an LED.
That's
They're not vinyl either.
It'll actually probably be more subtle than it's shown in that.
right.
That's what we're trying
This is
to
really just to
determine.
show where it is.
It won't
It's
be
not,
like lights around your makeup mirror.
Yeah,
it's the only way to show it is,
Right.
I understand. Well, we
no, it's not meant to
appreciate
go
you
false.
doing
It's
that.
just- It's really just a very subtle wash.
Okay, we'll go to testimony and come back. Thank you. Barbara Zay, please. No, it will be. It's more shaken.
Barbara Zay of the Historic Districts Council. While we appreciate the effort the applicant has made to redesign a row house that is in need of some work, HDC feels the result is rather overdone. The Upper East Side Historic District is a balance of grand buildings and elegant but more subdued ones. We ask that this balance be maintained with a more toned-down new design. Thank you.
Okay, Michael Hall, Friends?
Michael Hall, Friends of the Upper East Side. After meeting with the architects, Friends was heartened to learn that the firm was dedicated to undertaking a renovation of 20 East 63rd Street that was sensitive to its context in the Upper East Side Historic District. Following earlier meetings with the Landmarks Preservation Commission and a presentation at Community Board 8, the applicant seems committed to incorporating community input into their proposal, and this is evidenced by the evolution of the design over the past few weeks. While we at Friends sometimes wish for contemporary architectural expressions in cases where little original building fabric is preserved, the current proposal is both sophisticated and appropriate for its setting. The design team has artfully combined historic elements from neighboring buildings into a composition that addresses the transition from the commercial buildings on Madison Avenue to residential buildings on 63rd Street. Further, the attention to detail, such as specifying molded brick on the restored upper floors and wood-framed divided light windows, go a long way towards respecting neighboring buildings in the historic district as a whole. Friends does request, however, that the corporate logos on the awnings be limited to the base at the first 2 floors. With a reduction in the number of branded awnings, the Preservation Committee at Friends can support approval for the proposed changes to 20 East 63rd Street. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. CB8, full board, recommends approval. Anything further to add based on the testimony, discussion?
Okay. Well, this particular project, well, I think the attempt to improve the building is certainly appropriate. I think once you go for an uninflected, traditional approach, you got to jump in with both feet. And I think that the project, while generally in broadest strokes is acceptable, I would suggest that the applicant work carefully with staff on a lot of the details that make this building look more like a cheesy 20th century faux traditional, and go for it. You know, if you're going to do it right. For instance, the cornice, you'd never have a skinny little cornice like that. It would have a certain proportion to it. And all you got to do is look at the buildings that you're emulating on sheet A901, and you see that they have certain proportions to the way the openings are made, et cetera, that this building lacks. And I just would hate to have it look like a developer building, you know, apartment building in Queens where they bought some precast parts and threw them up. I think also, you know, no offense to Queens developers.
Put it in the Bronx, yeah.
I think one thing also, the rustication should really go, because it's stepping on the windows, or you got to move the windows in, and you got to look at the surround on the first floor door. You'd never have a surround on a first floor door that had no moldings, and then you have all these moldings elsewhere. Apart from the obvious things that you know, the reduction of the number of signs, I think that all of these things can be remedied at a staff level, but just drill into look at your neighbors a little bit more closely.
Joan?
Yeah, I can support it.
Okay.
With some of those changes.
Without the
That's
Queens-
worked out with staff.
Without the Queens reference?
Without the
Okay.
Queens reference.
Michael?
And without the signage on the canopy.
Yes, definitely.
That's it, yeah, and I agree with all that, and I'm sure it can be worked out with staff, and the signage should be limited to the area within the stone.
Yeah, that's it, that's better.
Yes,
How about Manhattan? Okay, go ahead.
I concur with those comments.
yes, and as recommended, not the signage taken off the awnings above the first 2 floors, as the friends and others have
Okay.
suggested. Yes.
Okay, I'll take the risk of asking Michael Goldblum. Hearing is closed.
Okay, thank you.
Please do this. Thank you.
Your choice. Regarding 20 East 63rd Street in the Upper East Side Historic District, the application is to install storefront infill and awnings, replace windows, and alter the front facade, and install areaway fences. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the building is highly altered. And it's not one of the buildings for which the Upper East Side Historic District was designated. Therefore, the work will not eliminate any significant historic fabric. That the proposed work is in keeping with the long tradition of Upper East Side Historic District of the creation of classically inspired facades. That the proposed materials, design, and details of the facade, including a limestone-based cornice, coins, and surrounds, and brick at the upper stories, or limestone-based cornice and window surrounds and brick at the upper stories, will recall materials and details found at row houses that were redesigned in the early 20th century on the street and in this historic district. That the overall composition of the facade, in terms of its symmetry, fenestration, and use of classical elements, evokes the 20th century Renaissance and Beaux-Arts styles that is in keeping with history of altering row houses in this historic district. That the proposed black painted wood windows are consistent with the materials, details, and finishes of the windows found historically at buildings within this row and at townhouses in this district. That the proposed black ironwork at the arched window will relate to the historic ironwork found in the rest of the block. That the proposed light fixtures will be well integrated with the design of the facade, will not have visible conduit, will not call undue attention to themselves. That the presence of an areaway is in keeping with the buildings of this age and style in the Upper East Side Historic District. That the height, placement, and painted finish of the proposed areaway railings are in keeping with similar railings typically found in the district. That the proposed areaway railings will not project further onto the sidewalk than any others on the block, and that the proposed work will not distract from the special character of the Upper East Side Historic District. However, I recommend that the signage be eliminated from the awnings at the upper stories, and the applicant work with staff to improve the detailing of the facade, and that the coins be reconsidered.
Okay, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved, thank you. And thank everybody for this
hearing.
day. Productive, we're done.
Close the hearing.
Early.